All right, Jonathan Jones, lead NFL reporter, one of my favorite people on Sunday mornings to watch. He's on. Are you on from like 10 a.m. to 12:59, JJ, at this point on CBS on one of our great networks?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm on CBS Sports Network from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern, and then on the NFL Today starting at noon Eastern.
Look at that. You're everywhere. Do you know Adam Shine, who hosts one of those shows, is my neighbor? Are you aware of this?
I did not know that.
Did you know that his daughter babysits my 11-month-old child on Sundays?
Wow, that's incredible. Love Adam Shine. What a guy. That's my guy.
Come on. I just told you his daughter is my guy. Let's not have a my guy off because I just told you my connection. So
That's
I don't
true.
know. Maybe he's more of my guy than you. I don't know. Let's not have that contest right now. So we're going to do the biggest stories of 2024 coming up. You're so good at figuring out what's going to happen, what is happening. I'm going to start here. I'll start with mine because I think that you've written a bunch about this. I think Bill Belichick is going to be a bigger force in the coaching market than maybe people anticipate. Because it was funny because a couple of weeks ago I put out on Twitter, I was like, how many people would even offer Bill Belichick a job, knowing what you know now, knowing that he's taken that roster into a place that I don't think a lot of people are too thrilled with in New England and elsewhere. But you're going to have to give him a lot of money, a lot of power. And I heard from a bunch of people in the league saying, dude, do not underestimate owners' desire for a name brand. Because, and I said this on the show before, but like Josh Harris, he doesn't want to make some huge mistake off the bat and hire the Matt Rule of Washington.
Sure.
David Tepper, he's getting heat constantly because he keeps hiring the wrong guy, keeps paying out all this money. The way to end that is to hire Bill Belichick, outsource all your decisions to him. And if it doesn't work, you say, what do you want from me? I hired the greatest coach of all time. It feels like there's going to be a market here. I don't think Los Angeles gets in there just because of the power and the money thing, neither of which I don't think the Spanish wants to give up. You wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. You think that develops how in the coaching market, JJ?
So, I hear that about Los Angeles and about, that they're going to pay less than other places. And that's probably true. And then I think about Bill Belichick. And it's like, man, it's been 3-4 years since you had a quarterback. And it's been more than a decade since you had a guy in his prime like Justin Herbert. Like, is it really about $7 extra million a year to you? Especially if you're getting paid upwards of $20 million per year right now. Like, is it? I don't know. And of course, he's not going to give us any indication about that. But that's just one thing that I've sort of balked at a little bit is that like there's this idea out there that's sort of been perpetuated that Bill Belichick is only going to go where they're going to pay him Bill Belichick money. And I don't know that that's going to be the case when he may be out there trying to really prove something at 72 years old, needing 2 or 3 seasons left to catch Don Shula. Like, are you going to haggle over money or are you going to try to find the best possible situation for yourself? So that's just been my one hesitation when we talk about the Chargers and Belichick.
Yeah.
But anywhere else, like, yeah, I mean, your thoughtfulness, your logic, I understand, I follow. I mean, look, if Chicago comes open,
Yeah.
um, right? I mean, you have a president in Kevin Warren who really wants a lot of brand integrity, wants to put Chicago, like, here you go, here's your guy, right? So I could see him in a lot of places, and I could also see him very similar to like even Brady in 2020, where like he should have gone to 7 or 8 different places, and ultimately
Right.
who wanted him.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely, the Brady analogy is great because I think we all, I mean, literally he came out and said, you're going with that MFer or whatever it was. Do we
Yeah,
believe now to be Ryan Tannehill, although Ryan Fitzpatrick thinks that I don't know.
it could have been. It was one of the
It's
Ryans.
shrouded in mystery. It's shrouded in mystery. All right. Your number one story. Do you have a coaching carousel thought here? Just in general on one of your stories to look at for 2024?
Yeah, no, it's sort of Patriots, but it's also, I mean, it's sort of Belichick, but it's the new chapter for the Patriots, I think.
Yep.
I'm fascinated in how the breakup is going to go down, right? Is it going to be a resignation, a retirement, a trade, a firing, a mutual parting of ways? And I think it's going to be the latter. And I think that because I think we're going to see a stare down between Belichick and Kraft, where wherever Belichick goes, he's not going to want to give up a draft pick that he could use for his
Yep.
team. Um, and sort of a Don Draper, that's what the money's for. Like,
Yeah.
hey, we gave you this contract extension, there's your freedom, that's your thank you for the 6 banners. So then it's, will the Patriots and will the Crafts finally hire a general manager, right? Because
Mhm.
they never really have. They
No.
they had Bobby Greer that was already there when they took over the team. Belichick brought over Pioli. So whether there was someone as a GM in name or whether they hired someone, they never have actually done that. And
Right.
so if they will do that and what the structure is going to be after 30 years of doing it one way, that is what I am fascinated by.
You wrote a couple weeks ago about how this might be the transition to defensive minded head coaches. Now, I want to get to that in
Yep.
a second, but do you think the reaction is going to be, and I know it's the greatest coach of all time, and Gerard Mayo has been linked there for, and there's been rumors that, he turned down Carolina because maybe there was some sort of deal. I don't know. But you always hire the opposite of the guy you just fired? Is there going to be a reaction towards like offensive coach, fix the quarterback position, or do you think that they're just going to go with the best guy?
Yeah, whether it's New England or going outside of that, and truly, if anybody tells you right now that they know which way New England's going,
Yeah.
like beware that person, right? Um, but as far as like expanding out and generally speaking, I think I think we're going to see a shift to defensive coaches
Yeah.
almost out of necessity,
Yep.
right? I mean, we've just gone through that churn of offensive coordinators over the last couple of years where the average offensive coordinator has been there for 1.2 seasons or
Yep.
something like that heading into this year. And so they're just, if there are 7 or 8 openings and you say, okay, Ben Johnson's getting a job and Bill Belichick will get a job. Now we're at 5 or 6. And what is the material difference right now between or among a Frank Smith, a Bobby Slowick?
Yeah.
You can continue on down the path of current really good offensive coordinators, but ultimately unproven offensive coordinators, at least when it comes to their head coaching chops and prowess. So if I were hiring right now, I also don't like risk. So I would go for a more sure thing, and it would be a Dan Quinn. It would be a Steve
Yeah.
Wilks, perhaps a Raheem Morris, before it would be someone as great a human as they may be, who's only called offensive plays for 15 games.
I think it's short term versus long term. If your problem is you need to fix the quarterback position right now, which by the way, I don't think the Patriots have that problem. I think Mac Jones is not the answer. But if they get a top 2 pick and they get Caleb Williams or Drake May, maybe that changes the equation. But a young hot offensive coordinator is going to want to come there. I think you hire the vision, not the person. Sorry, not the position they come from. If it's someone like I think the worst possible process is Brandon Staley, but like the idea was right, which is get the kind of the visionary analytics type of coach for that program, get him in there. Problem was Brandon Staley was bad at that. Brandon Staley was bad at executing that. So I completely agree. And also, as you just said, like it becomes diminishing returns. What are you going to hire the tight ends coach from a Shanahan McVay tree because all the quarterback coaches already got hired over the past 2 years? I completely agree. It's going to shift and it should shift this year. All right. I want to talk about quarterbacks here real quick
Yes.
because I think this is going to be. There's a couple things I want to talk about, and I'll throw it to you. First thing is the Tua effect, which I think you're going to see a couple of places where 2021 type of draft picks or 2022 where teams say, let's give this guy another chance in a new offense with a new coach. Let's believe in him. Let's try to get
Mm.
weapons around him. Let's scheme this up. I think that's possible in some of these places. Could be owners and GMs coping and trying to talk themselves into it, but it could also be just this is the path forward. We believe in this guy. I think Chicago is a really interesting place to watch there, or a team kind of reacting to it like Atlanta saying, hey, Justin Fields is available. Let's go get him. I think you're going to see a little bit of quarterback movement. I think Kirk Cousins, I saw a PFF projection. He'll get 2 years, 60 million somewhere. I don't know where that is. The funny thing is that if you just took the names off, Minnesota will be a match made in heaven. So that maybe that just
Sure.
links back up there. But I think that the biggest thing for me is the top of the draft right now in Chicago. Is there a desperate team that you're going to be able to bilk out of 3 or 4 first round picks? Is that going to happen, or do you just take it and then trade Justin Fields? I don't know. I will leave it to you. The most fascinating quarterback thing you're watching in 2024 is what, Jonathan?
Oh boy. That was really good. I would say mine is the market for backup quarterbacks.
Oh,
So mine is how okay, let's go back to last March and Jacoby Brissett, right? He signs 1 year, $8 million with the opportunity to start, but he also knew going in that Sam Howell was the QB1 with an asterisk, right? Gardner Minshew goes to Indianapolis with a strong belief that Anthony Richardson or someone like him is going to be drafted and he'll have to compete with a rookie. So he signed a 1 year, what was it, $3.5–4 million contract. I don't have to tell you about all the quarterback injuries that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we had sort of the Brock Purdy effect last year in the draft, where we had a bunch of teams probably draft quarterbacks 5th, 6th, 7th rounds that maybe they wouldn't have previously, but they were trying to hit on that Purdy. And now I think after this rash of injuries at the quarterback position, the Jacoby Brissetts of the world, I mean, he will absolutely make 12,
Yep.
13, $14 million. And he would be very wise to sign a 1 year deal. And all of those guys would be very wise to sign 1 year deals. So the market is going to go up so much. Ryan Tannehill is not going to be with the Tennessee Titans next year. But
Yep.
typically, a Ryan Tannehill would be on a 1 year and some sort of veteran contract, right? Well, he's going to pull $10-ish million simply because he can play the quarterback position competently.
I that is as good a point as it's been over the past couple of weeks, because I think that's like Chris Long was on the show the other day, and he was just talking about how, like, look at what the Bengals did. The Bengals did not give up on their season. Jake Browning, by the way, is good. Like, I don't
Good,
think he's
like
not Joe
objectively
Burrow.
good.
He's not a supercomputer like Joe Burrow, but I was watching the QB school breakdown, and I'm looking for scheme stuff, because I think the best coaching job in history, in my time covering the league, was Doug Peterson making Nick Foles into a Super Bowl winning quarterback on basically 2 weeks' notice, right? And
Sure.
the way they were able to scheme up the RPOs and the dagger routes, and they were able to have this mini training camp during the bye. And I've always thought about that as like, okay, that's what you do with the backup quarterback. Jake Browning is just making throws. And so I'm watching this video trying to look like, all right, what are Brian Callahan and Zach Taylor cooking up? What are the routes? Whatever. And it's like, it's not, the offense isn't changing that much. It's just that Jake Browning can make these outside the numbers throws. Obviously, that T. Higgins throw was as impressive, and the catch obviously was as impressive as
Right.
anything I've seen. Like, there's, I don't think they're going to win a playoff game, but I think that they're a team that would not be a gimme in January. And so I think that's teams that don't give up on their season when they have a backup quarterback. And there's 3 in playoff positions right now. I think that's
Right.
the most admirable thing you could possibly do. Joe Flacco is throwing it all over the yard, bro.
It's incredible. And it truly, I know that everybody can bang on the Jets, but it really puts into focus how much the Jets screwed it up, right? I mean,
Yes.
that Flacco is able to do this. And like, it also speaks very well of Kevin Stefanski, who is very deserving and will be getting a contract extension this offseason. It speaks very well of the personnel department in Cleveland when a quarter of their team in terms of salary cap space is on injured reserve. And here they are in what we all said was the most competitive division in football in a playoff spot. But Joe Flacco being able to thrive the way that he is, while the Jets acted as though there was no one else from week 2 on that could possibly save them. They were in the market for a Brett Rippon when Joe Flacco was there, right? The whole question really was, is Carson Wentz better than Zach Wilson? Not what you think about Carson Wentz, but is Carson Wentz a better quarterback than Zach Wilson? And the answer was obviously yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know we're talking about 24, but look, Wentz, he's going to make more money than whatever the Rams are paying him right now because of this exact situation.
Tickets to the game, merch, meals at iconic restaurants, stays at Caesar's Palace. All this can be yours when you bet with Caesar Sportsbook. Win or lose, every bet earns reward credits, which you can redeem across the empire. Now, if you haven't started yet, use the code OMAHAFULL and then place your first bet up to $1,250. If you win, great, you keep those winnings. But if you lose, you get your stake back as a bonus bet. What is the next 2024 genre story you're watching?
You know what? I'm going to go specific.
Oh, yeah.
Not even genre. There is about to be, and I have no joy in saying this, there is about to be a full-on character assassination of Caleb Williams. And it is about to take place because he is so obviously and clearly the top pick in the draft. And the draft coverage has grown so much. The time between when the season ends and when the draft begins, it seems like it's gotten longer. We have to stretch. And so in the absence of actual discussion over, is he the best quarterback? Will he be number 1? We're going to get into ridiculous conversations about him crying with his parents or how he paints his nails or when he talks to the media after games. And I can't even imagine, Kevin, what folks will come up with come March, because that's just what I'm coming up with right now in
Yep.
December.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. And the one thing that I don't love about draft season, there's a couple of them, but one of them is that there are how many scouts are there? So like college scouts, like 8 per team would
Yeah,
be
I
like
mean,
actual scouts. Yeah, something
sure.
like
Yeah.
that.
Let's call it an average of 10 and let's have a nice
Right.
round number,
Sure.
300-ish.
300. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they all have wildly different opinions. And you and I have talked to them, and they've just said things you're just like, that is not true. Like, that's not an evaluation thing. What you just said is literally just not true. They'll just be like, well, like it's you'll talk to them and be like, hey, Joe Flacco's playing great for the Seahawks. And it's like, wait, what? What's going on? Are you on pills? And
Absolutely.
so and so what happens in draft season is, and I do believe, I don't think people make this stuff up, but it's like, hey, this scout told me that they have a 6th round grade on Caleb Williams, whatever, right? And it just becomes a buzzy story and you put it out there. I don't think people are making it up. I think it's just there's 300 people and some of them have wild opinions. Just like if you have 300 media members and one of them is like, hey man, I would trade Patrick Mahomes right now for Frank
Right.
Ragnow because the center, we need to fix the center position, right? Like people have wild opinions. And then one little kernel thing becomes scouts say, and then the scouts say thing, and then people start arguing against the scouts say thing. And then we end up with a discussion about a discussion about a discussion that is based on nothing. The kernel is basically one person's opinion. And because
Right.
we have so much time and so little content, even though the tape is there, but we don't want to look at the tape. We don't want to look at the tape because we can't understand it. And it was funny because my criticism of Williams, I was like, I need to see him get rid of the ball quicker just because that's just what happens at the NFL level. Same with Drake May. And so
Sure.
I was looking before the season, and it was 3.5 seconds took to throw. And I'm like, oh, here, and this is in my head. I'm just like, all right, here we go. I'm gonna bury him. Patrick Mahomes last season in college, 3.5 seconds to throw. So you can't just, oh, the criticism in my brain was going to be, oh, he hasn't played NFL football yet. Literally, that's what I was boiling it down to. So who's the idiot now? It's me.
Well, and you made such a great point about like the kernel of bad take turns into this. Like we just lived it with Cam Newton
Yeah.
and the whole game manager, game changer, right? Like, yeah, of course Cam can have an opinion, and just because you play doesn't mean that your opinion is any good. Like it was, I would say objectively, as far as opinions can be objective, it was a bad opinion. And I think that we
Yeah.
all understand that. And it was a flawed argument from the jump. But then we spent 5 days discussing what was always just a poor infrastructure of a thought. And so that's what we're going to get with a Caleb Williams, especially when you include his quotes, his dad's quotes to GQ,
Yeah.
about wanting a piece of a franchise and all that stuff. It's going to be really ugly because we, not you and I, but the media, are going to get so bored with how he is so clearly going to be the first player taken in the draft.
I read those franchise quotes in the report differently. I don't know if it was a quote. I know the report was out there. I read it as them trying to have a little bit of control over a process in which the first overall pick never has any control. Since Eli Manning, basically, no one is forced their way out of an organization. Now, you could always come back if you wanted to. Andrew Luck obviously did that. That's why Cam Newton went first overall the year he did. Peyton Manning did that with the Jets. You can come back if you want to, but the other option is anchor to a situation where you're just like, hey, I might have demands that you might not want. And what you're doing there, in my opinion, is like they know they're not going to get 0.5 of an NFL franchise. But what you can do is say, hey, like you don't automatically get Caleb Williams just because you have the first overall pick. That's how I read that. And
Yeah.
listen, like geography is destiny in football. If Caleb Williams goes to the wrong place, his career is ruined. And he's not going to make like the difference between. I mean, look at obviously Daniel Jones is not what anybody wants to comp him, but like Daniel Jones got a good coach and a couple of breaks, and he made $160 million from it. And the
Yeah.
difference between $30 million, which is what you get as a top 10 pick, and $160 million is a whole lot. It's the difference between I don't have to worry about money for the rest of my life, and my great, 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 great grandkids don't have to worry about money for the rest of their lives. And so, but you don't, there's no guarantee that Caleb Williams is going to get $200 million, $300 million if he goes to the wrong place. So I think that to me was something that I was watching a little bit. And I'm glad you brought that up. Speaking of, and I wanted to ask you with us because you just wrote about it recently, the Dak contract.
Yeah.
Where does that fall? I mean, are we getting in a situation? It was funny because you felt like this happened in 2014, 15, 16, where it was just like, all right, the most recent guy is the highest paid guy. Now we saw the Burrow, the Herbert deals. Are we just getting to a spot where we know what the market is and it's just going to be $5 million in the Herbert contract?
I don't know if that's going to be Dak's deal because that wasn't Dak's deal when he got paid the last time.
Right.
It was the 4-year deal when everyone was going 5. Now players are going 6. And I don't know. And also it was so heavily fully guaranteed, right?
Yes.
And so now it's all about what agent wants to get what win, right? So what is Dak Prescott's agent? What is he going to consider a win? Because that Dak Prescott was a huge, huge win, even though the graphics that we're going to show are going to say that Dak is 3rd in AAV. Like what always got me, Kevin, was it last year? So Deshaun Watson secures, right, this insane, fully guaranteed contract. But then Kyler Murray gets that same number and they add $500,000 to it. And so forever and ever, Kyler Murray is above Deshaun Watson in terms of average annual salary, when you and I both would take Deshaun Watson's contract 7 times over Kyler Murray's contract. And so I don't know that Dak and Dak's agent are going to want to just say, oh, we're at 55.1 over Joe Burrow, where I don't know that they're going to want to lock into a 6 or 7-year deal like Jerry Jones may want to actually get them to that number. But another fully guaranteed contract, one that gets Dak back to free agency after 3 or 4 years, if that could even be done, because right now, Dak has an incredible amount of leverage by virtue of the no tag clause. So you can't go into next season without having extended him, or else you risk more than any other time ever losing him.
The bonanza, if he reached true free agency, would change football.
Yeah.
It would change
it could
football.
maybe change the contracts the way that,
Yes.
you could go through the NBA and all the years, right? But, Larry Bird, all these, it could you're absolutely right, Kevin.
Like no player like that has ever reached free agency. We saw what happened when Kirk Cousins reached free agency. 2 things are true. Number one is no genuine superstar quarterback has ever reached true free agency.
Right.
Lamar came the closest, but obviously the Ravens had the right to match there. And the second thing is, and I still believe this, no team has ever gotten rid of a quarterback they wanted to keep. I've said that, and I said that after Russell Wilson, and everybody got mad at me, and the Broncos fans got mad at me. I don't think it's ever happened. And
Garoppolo, when the Patriots had to trade him.
Well, I mean,
I know it's not the same.
They did have the best quarterback of all time as a starter, so they were okay, and they still won Super Bowls after that, so they're fine. But no, I think that the Dak contract, I think it's fascinating to watch because the no tag thing, like Drew Brees obviously had that in his last years, and Drew Brees is the richest person in the Southern United States at this point because of it. And that wasn't necessarily because of his contract; it was because he'd been tagged so often in so many different places that basically he could have gotten there. But I completely agree. The Jones family acted a little flat-footed last time in those negotiations and dragged it out longer than it should have. Do we expect this to get done in a timely manner, or is the Jones family being weird?
I don't know. When I reported what I did around Thanksgiving, there was nothing new in terms of negotiations and talks. I don't anticipate, because it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense from a leverage perspective, that Dak and his representation would engage right now if they were to be engaged. But I also don't think the Cowboys have done so either. But if Dak in these last few games can get back to that MVP level, because I think he's obviously dropped just a little bit. If he wins the MVP and becomes the first Cowboys quarterback to ever win the MVP, which is really crazy, right? It's similar to a couple of years ago when Alabama never had a Heisman winning quarterback. Like, if that happens, the face of NFL contracts, like you say, has changed forever.
Before I get to badasses, I want to ask you, went to North Carolina, I went to Miami. Are you excited to see our teams play in the championship game 2 years from now in the Mountain West Conference?
It is incredibly sad. I wish that the ACC would have had a little bit more foresight a couple of years ago, and here we are today.
Well, my thing, everyone's like, well, the ACC is going to dissolve. The problem is not the problem. there's going to be a bunch of teams in the ACC that have nowhere to go. So they'll just reform, and then they'll just, like, they're not all going to go to the Big 12. They're going to be a 30-team Big 12. It'll be
Right.
like, so let's say Syracuse, or sorry, Syracuse, I can say like Clemson, Florida State. Let's say they have Power 2, whatever. Miami, I think, would be on the cusp of that, but it's possible that given where the program is, they get shut out. So then it makes all the sense in the world for like Virginia, Syracuse, Duke, and then I don't know where North Carolina would go if they would leave Duke, Wake Forest, all that stuff. Just regroup, just regroup. Anyway,
Yeah, they
that's a
probably
different podcast. That's a different podcast. And don't have that commissioner in charge of it. Anyway, we're gonna do badasses. You've covered this league for a decade,
decade plus. Yeah, sure.
decade plus, decade plus. Most badass person you've ever been around in football. I want to do it covered, and then I want to do at CBS. So let's start with covered. The most badass person you covered, Jonathan Jones.
Well, I mean, it's when you know my background that I covered the Carolina Panthers from
Yep.
2012 to 2016. It's obviously Steve Smith,
Mm.
who he well, he and I had a good back and forth, a very good rapport. It was healthy. It was great for a young beat writer. Really kind of helped me grow some hair on my chest early on. So Steve Smith, without question.
What's your favorite Steve Smith story about the back and forth between you guys?
All right. So I think it's 2013 or 14, one of the two. And the Panthers are out in Arizona, and it's early in the season. They get absolutely whipped by the Cardinals, like not even close. And Steve goes off on the officials after the game. And it's one of those goes off so much that you know he's going to get fined. So we get back to Charlotte, and on Monday, I go up to Steve. Hey, you heard from the league? No. I go up to Steve on Wednesday. Hey, heard from the league? He's like, Jonathan, come on. And then I think it was on Thursday, and he goes, hey, Jonathan, come here. He waves me over, and there's this FedEx package, like an envelope.
Mm-hmm.
And he shows it to me, and it appears that it is from the NFL, 345 Park Avenue. And he starts to open it up. And here I am, a younger beat reporter. I'm thinking to myself, man, Steve's about to open his fine letter from the NFL, and I'm the only one who can see it. I'm going to tape this, and we're going to blog it. And I say, you know what, Jonathan, be cool, man. Just have this moment. Don't pull out the phone. So I don't. And he reaches inside the envelope, and he pulls out a piece of paper on Panthers letterhead that says, you are a dumbass. And Steve Smith had mailed himself a letter to trick me because I constantly asked about him getting fined.
Oh,
It's a true
did he
story.
at least let you keep the piece of paper?
I wish I still had that piece of paper.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he did that, and
Oh my God.
yeah, I love that guy.
Whoa. Okay. All right. We'll get you out of this on biggest badass. Mina picked Laura Rutledge a couple weeks ago. And so now that when people are on TV, we like to do badass that they work with now. Biggest badass you work with at CBS.
Okay, it'd be easy for me to say Bill Cowher, right?
Sure,
It
of
would be
course.
really easy for me to talk about Nate Burleson, who does it all, or James Brown, the Hall of Famer. But someone behind the scenes, my producer at that other pregame show on CBS Sports Network, Deb Gelman, she's been in television for a very long time, has always been behind the scenes. But like she produces a live 4-hour NFL pregame show every single week that takes a whole lot to do. Again, live 4 hours. So like, I know that it's not nearly as good as my Steve Smith answer. But I feel like, Bill Cowher he's that dude, and that one's an easy
Yep.
one. But Deb Gelman, I owe so much to her and what the folks there, certainly who are not in front of the camera, do.
Awesome, man. Jonathan Jones, we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Appreciate you, man.